Rigoberto Gonzalez's Casa in this video. So if you recall, we had the other poem, Cornelius Eady's Emmett Till's Glass Top Casket, told from the point of view of the casket and object. And remember the tone and some of the reasons behind that. Let's look at this poem. It's a little longer than some of our others. Uh, think of the title, Casa. What's Casa mean? House or home? But it's important. It's Casa too. That's in Spanish. And the poem consists of we have the 5 line stanzas, cinquains. So let's look at each. And remember how we did at the beginning of the semester for like the shorter poems, the sonnets, where I had you choose a line that's important, choose a line that's confusing. You could do this a similar thing for longer poems, but instead of a line, choose a stanza. Look at each stanza. Look at each stanza as a room one enters. What's going on in each stanza? Casa. I am not your mother. I will not be moved by the grief or gratitude of men who weep like orphans at my door. I am not a church. I do not answer prayers, but I never turn them down. Come in and kneel or sit or stand. The burden of your weight won't lessen, no matter the length of your admission. Tell me anything you want. I have to listen, but don't expect me to respond when you tell me you have lost your job, or that your wife has found another love, or that your children took their laughter to another town. You feel alone and empty? Color me surprised. I didn't notice they were gone. Despite the row of faces pinned like medals to my walls, I didn't earn them. The scratches on the wood are not my scars. If there's a smell of spices in the air, blame the trickery of kitchens, or your sad addiction to the yesterdays that never keep no matter how much you believe they will. I am not a time capsule. I do not value pithy things like locks of hair and milk teeth and ticket stubs and promise rings, mere particles of dust I blow out to the street if I could sneeze. Take your high school jersey and your woman's wedding dress away from me. Sentimental hoarding bothers me. So off with you, old couch that cries and coins as it gets dragged out to the porch. Farewell, cold bed that breaks its bones in protest to eviction or foreclosure, or whatever launched this grim parade of exits. I am not a pet. I do not feel abandonment. Sometimes I don't even see you come or go or stay behind. My windows are your eyes, not mine. If you should die inside me, I'll leave it up to you to tell the neighbors. Shut the heaters off. I do not fear the cold. I'm not the one who shrinks into the corner of the floor because whatever made you think this was a home with warmth isn't here to sweet talk anymore. Don't look at me that way. I'm not to blame. I granted nothing to the immigrant or exile that I didn't give a border crosser or a native born. I am not a prize or a wish come true. I am not a fairy tale castle, though I used to be, in some distant land inhabited by dreamers now extinct. Who knows what happened there? In any case, good riddance, grotesque fantasy and mirth. So long, wall-to-wall disguise and vulgar suede and chintz. Take care, you fool, and don't forget that I am just a house, a structure without soul for those whose patron saints are longing and despair. Wow. What's the tone of the house? What's the house doing, saying, feeling? First off, if we were in class, this is what I always do in reading this poem. I write on the board, what's a home or a house supposed to bring to mind? What are all the things that when you think of a home or house, it's supposed to do? Warmth, family, safety, sanctuary, togetherness, comfort, ease, you know, and think of what a house represents. The American dream. We want a house, right? And let's look at the tone of this house. I think sometimes people mistake the tone of the house. And I think it may switch a little bit down here. But a house, what is a house? It's made up of wood, drywall, wire. It's a structure. It's physical, inanimate objects. We give a house emotions and character, life. We put all these thoughts, feelings into the house like it's a living, breathing thing, but it's not. Which is funny because this poem, it's talking like a person here. But let's look at it. I am not your mother. Right off the bat, I am not your mother. I'm not going to take care of you like mom does. I will not be moved by the grief or gratitude of men who weep like orphans at my door. You know, what do we say when people come in? Come in, take a load off. Lay your burdens down. No, this house doesn't care. I am not a church. And here's where we get the indifference. And I always ask this question too. When you argue with someone, say a boyfriend, girlfriend, husband, wife, partner, loved one, family member, friend, what's worse when you argue than that other person getting angry when they don't care? Indifference. Because when someone gets angry, that means they still care, right? That you could do something that could cause a rise out of them. If you fight with someone, they're like, whatever, I don't care. That means it doesn't matter anymore. This house doesn't care one way or the other. There's no feelings one way or the other. I do not answer prayers, but I never turn them down. Come in and sit, the burden of your weight won't lessen. Tell me anything, I have to listen, but I can't respond. When you've lost your wife, think of house as a symbol of the American dream too. Just because we acquire a house, what does that tell us? You feel alone? I didn't notice they were gone. I'm fascinated with these moments here. The row of faces pinned like medals. Now, do any of you have think of all your school pictures on the wall, the pictures of family pinned like medals, you know, sad addiction to yesterdays. What do we do? And I'm fascinated with these things we keep. I'm not a house as a time capsule, pithy things like locks of hair and milk teeth and ticket stubs. And I always ask this question, are we our things? And do any of you collect like ticket stubs, little knickknacks, trinkets, little things that we can remember other things by? And I'm like, why? I do too, but I don't know what, we have the memory in our brains. But we collect our things. And what the house is saying here is the house is indifferent to these things. The house doesn't care about any of this stuff. The house doesn't care about the milk teeth, the ticket stubs, the promise rings. To the house, they're mere particles of the dust. Your high school jersey, your women's wedding dress, usually clothes. Do any of you have clothes that you haven't worn for years but you just can't get rid of? Here's the moment where it's not indifferent. Sentimental hoarding bothers me. So we have the houses. This thing bothers me here. So off with you, old couch that cries. Farewell, cold bed that breaks its bones. I'm not a pet. I don't feel abandonment. The windows of the house are the soul of the house, right? This poem, this Casa says no. If you'll die, tell the neighbors that your body will rot. I'm fascinated with this moment in the poem, and I'm so curious what do you think of Casa and or Rigoberto Gonzalez and the title of the poem with this moment. I granted nothing to the immigrant or exile that I didn't give a border crosser or native born. Here's a moment here, right? And I'm fascinated. I can't personally, subjectively speak to this. Part of me wonders if people from other countries, I bought a house, I got a house, I belong here. Is that always the case? Are certain people still exiles, outsiders? The house doesn't care. Just because you bought a house, it doesn't care. It's not a prize or a wish come true. I'm fascinated with this. Do you ever watch those HGTV shows, House Hunters or the $1,000,000 houses or whatever? We think of a house as this symbol of a dream or a wish come true, like we made it. But you get that thing and it may not give you happiness. I'm not a fairy tale castle, though I used to be, by dreamers now extinct. So long, wall-to-wall disguise. I am just a house. All these thoughts, images, feelings, are from people that are foisted on the house. And this poem reminds us of that. Even though this poem has nothing to do with Emmett Till's Glass Top Casket, this would be a really good paper. You could juxtapose the tone and feelings of both houses. But that's just a quick reading of Rigoberto Gonzalez's Casa, a fascinating poem told from the point of view of a house.